Hello. Ooh, there's the sun. It's good to talk with you. I want you to know that feeling good is doing your best. Feeling good is work. Feeling good is doing your best heart centered work. I am Joe Neely of joeneely.net, and I wanted to get those ideas down first before I introduced myself because I'm sitting here in the woods. I've just filled in my morning hole, and I am enjoying the good weather, especially the shade. You know, it's so hot in the city and so wonderfully shady here in the woods where the trees turn all that extra heat, light, photons, however they do it, into more trees, into oxygen and all the rest. Um, I really look forward to a world where we create livable environments for ourselves, not just the cheapest possible living situations for, you know, a person's price range. You know, you see people living in kind of scruffy old houses that nobody wants anymore, you know, at a low price range. Though maybe there's landlords who squeeze money out of those people, I don't know. But you also see people at a higher end, people at the what we might call the upper middle class. Um, Gosh, I've seen down in Florida some retirement communities. You know, you've got all these like virtual mansions, you know, half a million up to $1 million homes, you know, all these, you know, mini mansions just sitting next to each other, all in a gated community with its own golf course and whatever other recreational facilities. Um, I guess some people want that enclave. Some people want that community of people who are at the same level so they don't feel guilty about people at another level, or so they don't feel threatened by people at a lower economic level. I'm not really sure how that works. It's almost haircut time. Anyway, um, whew, I am stunned at how we create environments that aren't livable. Um, Neighborhoods can be a good thing, especially if you have kids and you want them to be around other kids. I understand the, you know, home for one family surrounded by many other single family kind of neighborhoods. I get that. And, you know, that can be a pretty livable environment. Hopefully, there's lots of trees. Hopefully, we all get those solar roofs that look like shingles. They're putting out solar roofs that emulate, you know, the fashion that we're used to. Just like we have those spiral light bulbs that fit in our light bulb fixtures. You know, adapting new technology to look like old, I think is a good part of the transition process. But yeah, you know, trees create shade. They create oxygen. They hold the soil together and they make us happy. And I enjoy this environment quite a lot. I enjoy being here, enjoying my own heart openings that happen here. I also went and worked with some cats. I like to socialize cats at the animal shelters, which is just a fancy justification for playing with cats for an hour or two. Um, the cats do need love. You know, it really is a good thing. The cats need exercise, attention, hugs, treats, trying to work on that sunshine. That's a little better. But yeah, the cats need it. They need love from people, and they're in a little cat prison Well, they're waiting for someone to adopt them. So, yeah, it is a good thing, but I'm really doing it for myself. Getting to hold a little kitten, maybe 4 or 5 week old kitten, yesterday was really great. And, really giving the adult cats a lot of love and really connecting with a few of them. It was pretty powerful and something I hope to do more of because I know it's good for me. Um, as I get used to my travel lifestyle, of course, things like volunteering, things like going on a cycle trip, not for necessity, but because I want to, or things like working on hobbies and projects that don't pay off right away. Um, all that stuff seems to be scary because what if, you know, I focus too much on that and not enough on my work? Or what if I burn too much energy that I need just to get through my lifestyle and get through my day? Because my day requires a certain amount of effort and a certain amount of courage and a certain amount of willpower. I have a certain amount of risk and a certain amount of adventure in my daily life, which which works. I keep thinking I have something crawling on me. I'm sitting here in the woods, so you do get creepy crawlies, but you also get paranoid thinking that you have crawlies, but you don't. But yeah, the point is fears. I have a fear that I'm not gonna have enough energy to handle something, because it does happen. I will have a surprise pop up where I can't find a camping space and it's late at night and I have to really search around to find something. Or, especially when I'm in a new town, I've got to figure out how to make things work in that town. Everything from grocery shopping to doing my laundry to getting a haircut to all that little stuff. All the stuff that, what can I say? It's just those necessities of life, all those tasks that just need to be done. When you're in a new town, you don't have a way figured out, how to do them already. You've got to figure them out afresh. And that's part of the neat thing about travel is we don't get into a rut. We don't get into a rut of, I always drive this way and I turn this way at this intersection, I turn this way at that intersection, then I get to this place and I do this thing and I do it the same way every time. There's a comfort to those habits, but there's also kind of a voluntary, limited lifestyle. We limit ourselves. That being said, habits and conveniences are a great way to save energy for work, for what we wrap our lives around. Typically, work or child raising or both end up being the focuses of our lives. So I understand that people like to have the comforts of doing things the same way, so they can really pour all their effort into one thing. I think that's, a good choice for a lot of people. For me, I like to do a lot of different things. I like to dabble. I like to play. And the good thing is I'm getting used to this new lifestyle. I have been, rent free and living in the woods and enjoying myself for the most part. Um, for gosh, 9 months. Uh, it's May now, so that's 9 months. From July 29th, when I took off last year from Asheville. So, yeah, having done this lifestyle successfully and made it work for myself, more or less. I say more or less because some months I make more money than others. And sometimes I get frustrated and depressed, but let's face it, I was frustrated and depressed when I was living indoors too. Um, and living this way has taken some of that pressure off, both social and financial pressure. So, what I'm saying is I've gotten used to this lifestyle. And yes, when I get to a new town, I have to figure out new things. I have to find a place to stay. I have to figure out all those basic habits of where do I go for this and where do I go for that and how do I do this and also how do I do them cheaply? How do I find a grocery store that isn't, 20 miles round trip on the other side of town, which is, a lot of bike riding. Um, at my pace, that's 2.5 hours. That's a big chunk of the day plus a lot of exertion. Um, I strongly believe that we only have a certain amount of willpower for doing tasks that feel difficult. Now, of course, doing tasks over and over again makes them feel less difficult. And that's what I'm talking about. Even as a person who, doesn't have the same conveniences, the same route to work that I've taken from my home that I have a mortgage on, that I, turn right at the same stop sign every, 5 days a week for, 30 years. It's not like that. But I've learned how to find new places in new towns. I've learned how to figure out this and that. I've learned how to make new friends. I've learned how to um, structure my tasks without getting overwhelmed. I've learned to trust that if things don't look right one day, I can make them work. Um, it's just, it's just that I've been doing it for a while. If you move to a new state and a new city, and you live there for 9 months, you will begin to get better at, your daily habits, your work. You'll settle into everything. And that's what I'm doing. I'm settling into not settling in. That's really what I'm trying to say here. And yes, I still have challenges. Yes, March was a record-breaking month. I made more money on on the road than I ever have before. I've made slightly more money than that as a freelancer while I was living indoors and not, putting daily effort into cycle commuting and traveling and camping and all the rest. But yeah, March was a record-breaking month. April was virtually the opposite. I was overwhelmed. I took most of the month off, had some good successes near the end of the month when I felt like working again. But that's crazy. It's crazy that it swings that far. And some of it has to do with cycling. Some of it had to do with me wanting to move quickly through South Georgia. So I wasn't giving myself as much time to get to know people in each town or to settle in. I was being snobby and wanted to get to a college town instead of my little Starbucks highway towns that I was staying in on my days off. So maybe I can connect with people in those other towns too and be more of a bridge. I do believe that it's really important for those of us in kind of a blue state mentality to connect with people across the aisle, as they say, or just across the city limits, because it's really a city-rural divide that we have going on, is what we've created politically. And that just separates us from a lot of good people and separates us along some really unfortunate fault lines, cultural and religious fault lines that have nothing to do with the basic politics of giving everybody a good life and opportunity and all the rest. So, if you're a country person, go to the city and meet some good people. Yeah, you're going to meet some other people too who aren't so nice. Not everybody in the city is a good person. Not everybody in my favorite college towns is kind. Um, Likewise, city people need to go out to the country and really interact with country people. Um, the funny thing is, of course, you got to find the community centers in small places. I use coffee shops as a community center to meet people, but in small towns, it might be a convenience store, it might be a post office, it might be a grocery store, because everybody knows everybody in these small towns, and so getting to know people is a different process. Um, but I encourage everybody to reach out to the people we think are so different than us. Um, anyway, back to my original thought for this video, which was feeling good is good work. I feel good right now. I don't have any work on my plate today as a freelancer, so I feel a little bit like the bottom's dropped out. And that is, of course, part of the freelance game. I've recently decided to take off weekends, and now I feel like, oh gosh, maybe that was a bad decision because what if I don't have work to do on a weekday, then I don't make as much money. Oh no. And the truth is that my work comes in large chunks, small chunks, medium chunks, and sometimes not at all. That's just what it is. Making myself available 5 days a week instead of 7 is scary, but necessary. It's because I don't... How do I say this? I need the time off from even thinking about work, from feeling pressured to do work, from feeling bad that there isn't any work. You know, today I wish there was work on my plate, and so far there hasn't been, but I know there will be some soon. And I see that, and I try to manifest work and try to keep a positive attitude and everything else. And there's a part of me that wishes there was work to do. Don't get me wrong, on the big work days where I've got lots of deadlines, I wish there was less work to do. So it's all a balance, and that's the trick, is seeing my job across months. Not just days and weeks, but months. Seeing how I have a good month in March and a very slow month in April, and who knows what May will bring. I know that these months are bringing the sum of my daily and weekly and monthly manifestations. I know that when I want work, it's there. On days where I feel bad that there isn't work, but if I wanted it, it would be here, right? If I wanted it, it would manifest. So there's obviously something else that I wanted today. You know, maybe it was time to work on longer term projects that will pay off greater than my current work, both in money and satisfaction. But maybe, maybe I wouldn't have done the, website work or Facebook work related to these videos and related to the content that I want to provide people. Maybe I'm going to do stuff today that I wouldn't have done if I would have had other work. That's the real trick. It's knowing that I'm taken care of. It's knowing that even though I live on the road, I'm still cared for and protected by myself, by my big self, not the little self that worries, but the big self that knows. And today I know that whatever I do will be perfect. I know that whatever I choose to do will be my perfect path. I know that the path finds me and I don't have to find it. And I know that everything that happens is happening for me. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me. So it's about faith. It's about walking into the day saying, okay, well, I don't have a lot of work to do. Let's see what else is going to happen. Maybe I need a day to relax. Maybe I need a day to work on my other stuff. Maybe I need a day to connect with people. I had a really big work day on Monday and also made a nice connection with a person, but I was only able to speak with them for so long because I really needed to get my work done. And I'm sure I'll connect with them at the perfect time and place. And I know that we're all always connected, despite time and space. But that being said, I do feel like having a lot of work to do limited me socially on that day. Now, maybe that was good. Maybe I would have overdone it. Maybe I would have talked too much, as I can do. So who knows? Who knows? Everything is perfect in its own way, but what I'm saying is to look at all the days across the week and all the weeks across the months. Look at a bigger picture, to see your growth, to see your manifestations coming into being. For me, I tend to go back and forth a lot. I tend to get really into something and then I get out of it. I tend to work really hard on something, get overwhelmed and stop, and then come back to it if it's something I really like. I did that with these videos. I've done that with work. There are things that really matter to me that I will come back to, but if I get overwhelmed, I'll go away from them for a while. Same thing with my musical careers, or even my art hobby. Those things I've come away from because I got into them too hard. I think this working too hard or getting into things too much is the idea that we have to be awesome, that we have to achieve, that we have to be the best at something. If I get into art, I have to be the best at that. If I get into music, I have to be the best at that. If I get into writing, I have to be the best at that. You know, if I speak these videos to you, they have to be the best and I have to achieve. Now, some of that is because the people who are the best in their field, have the luxury of doing that thing for a living instead of something else. They have the luxury of doing that thing that they hopefully love, you know, and not anything else. They get to do the work they like the most. So there is that privilege, but there's also just a fear that we have to achieve or we're not worth something. That the group will reject us. That the group will regret having nurtured us, raised us up. Um, that the group says, oh, well, we gave you a bunch of money and resources and education and food and shelter and healthcare when you were young, and if you don't amount to something, then you've let us down. We're going to reject you. And the worst part of that is when I feel that within myself, when I internalize those beliefs. Um, and that's just part of our wage slave culture. We've come a long ways from the days of slavery. There are still a few instances of what pretty much amounts to slavery in our world. I'm not saying that it's gone from our world, but we have come a certain distance from people having no rights whatsoever. Now we just coerce and manipulate and twist the arms of people, put them in situations where they have no other choice but to do awful backbreaking work while other people sit around on their ass. So that's something that is, in my mind, a more sophisticated form of slavery. It's not, the Holocaust. It's not people being forced to work all day until they die. It's not the African American slavery experience. It's not the experience of, sex workers who are brought to another country um, and trapped in a place and forced to, you know, take care of people's sexual needs. Um, Obviously, that kind of work should be voluntary. And there's a lot that needs to be fixed in our world. But there's this idea that I can't remember who said it, that the best slave is the one who doesn't realize that they are a slave. Um, and I think there's some of that going on. It's not as bad. Knowing you are a slave is a horrible thing. And that does exist and has existed recently in our world. But also the people who think they're not slaves but are. The people who spend their whole lives doing a job they hate. For good reasons, to support themselves, to support their families, whatever else. But they're trapped. And, a lot of people just feel trapped in their jobs and they just go about their lives and they try to make the best of it and not worry too much and say, well, I just have to do this work and I don't like it, but it's just part of what everybody has to do in their lives. And that everybody, I think, is where it gets really painful. People who feel trapped say, well, everyone just has to do work that they hate and that's just the way life is, and just try not to think too hard about rich people, because the existence of rich people kind of undoes the whole denial mechanism that people use in order to continue living lives they don't like. you know? Not just rich people. What about people like me, people who are free? I have a wealth of freedom and a small amount of money, and I get by. There's people that look at me and say, wow, I wish I had that freedom, but I have this family to take care of, or I have this job that pays so well I can't leave, or I don't have very much money at my job, but it's better than nothing. And I try to encourage people to, reach out and do something a little more with their lives. That doesn't mean doing all the crazy stuff I'm doing, but, I work online. You could work online part time. You could just take a job here and there as a side thing to build up a little business at home. Maybe you're still going to have to work at the grocery store in order to feed your kids, but eventually you could build up an online job so you could change what you're doing. It doesn't have to happen all at once. Maybe you wouldn't feel secure freelancing until after your kids have left the house or until after you've retired, but maybe that's something you want to do a little bit now and then work into later. Heck, I'm still working into it. I'm still figuring it out. I'm just the kind of person who throws myself off the cliff and then learns to fly. Um, you can learn to fly while you're still holding on to your regular job. Just take a little bit of energy each day. Um, you know, Squeeze out a little bit of energy. I know you don't have a lot if you're working hard and raising a family, but squeeze out that little bit of energy for yourself to do some project or some hobby or some entrepreneurial adventure or invent or design something. It doesn't have to be all at once. It doesn't have to be right now. But going towards something, going towards more freedom, going towards owning your own business or whatever it is that makes you feel more free and less like an ant in an anthill, well, do it. You know? Like I said, feeling good is good work. If you get home from work and you just need to feel good by watching TV, whatever you do, I'm not a big fan of substances anymore, but some people need a beer or a joint to relax. No judgments there. I certainly understand it. And you need to feel good. Don't try to start your own business when you get home from work if you're feeling crappy. Make sure that you feel good first. Make sure that you feel good in every moment first, beyond anything else. If your boss is hollering or your coworkers are being snarky, accept that that's something some people do, but don't let it in. See it, understand it, accept it as something that, people do out of their damage, out of their limited view. They believe that's the only way to be. Just like I said, people trapped in lifestyles they don't want. Don't judge them. You know, uh, Being stuck in a lifestyle is pretty normal. You know, our societies are designed so that a lot of people just go to work and do jobs they don't like, so that a few people can live a very luxurious life. And that's something that we will continue to confront as a society over and over again until we get it right. We've been doing it for millennia. There were peasants and pharaohs in Egypt, ancient China, um, Roman times, I'm sure the Aztecs and the Cherokees and the Navajo and the ancient tribes that came before them, whose names we don't know. I'm sure they all had status as well. Um, I think status gets exaggerated when we live in large cities. I think tribal communities have less status, though maybe the smaller differences become a bigger deal. I don't know what it's like to live in a tribal society, so I can't say, but it feels like civilization, living in cities, really exaggerates the potential for the difference between the person on the top and the person on the bottom. I don't know. You anthropologists can help me out on that, and feel free to leave some comments so I can learn more about this. But yeah, I think it's human nature. I think status and ego and competition are just part of us, and we can try not to compete. We can walk away from that, but we can also use that desire to compete in a different way. What if we all competed to see who could, you know, invent the next green product, or who could, feed people in refugee camps, or who could do this, that, the other thing, that actually helps people. And what if those people were high status in our society? What if those people who put their energy into, figuring out how, not just what, not just, oh, let's feed the poor, but like how specifically do we do it? People that figure out the mechanisms, people that figure out the details, and people that are managers of that stuff and workers on the ground. Like, who does that kind of stuff? You know? So, I'm really interested to see, um, how do you do your work, and who do you value? Do you value the Olympian that can run around a track really fast, or do you value the person that is working on cold fusion in Britain? Supposedly they're having some successes over there. Do you? Who are your heroes? Do you even know who the people are who are trying to organize Syrian refugee relief, or wherever? What do you know about those people? Are they your heroes? Um, you know, are they your desired romantic partners? Do you consider um, moving us ahead as a species and solving our ego competition problems, and giving everybody a good, fair life with healthcare and education and food and shelter and all that stuff? Like, do you consider the people that work for those things to be your heroes? Do you consider them to be your desired mates? Um, as long as we, desire the people that are the most conventionally attractive, and I'm very guilty of this. Um, I like attractive young women, as many men do. You know, Women tend to like, high status men. That's something that's programmed into us. Um, as women, defining status a different way, defining what makes a leader or what makes a strong man in a different way than just using physical size or cunning or money to bully people around. Maybe there's a different kind of guy that's really a high status guy. For men, when you're looking at women physically, look at a different kind of beauty. You can't pretend that you're not attracted to what you're attracted to, but look for a certain beauty. Look for what's unique about a woman. One of the best things a guy can do is be surrounded by a lot of attractive women. I find, as I travel from college town, there's always beautiful women around, because, women are conventionally beautiful around the college age. So I become immune to this idea of, oh, she's skinny and she looks relatively good. You know, she has a pretty face, or she has good hair, or whatever the thing is. When you're in a small town, or when you're in a kind of middle class, working neighborhood, family neighborhood, to see a beautiful person is pretty rare. Just to see a young person is pretty rare, because, a lot of the people who are young in their 20s, who are conventionally attractive, don't typically live, in small towns. They move to cities. They, um, you know, congregate in certain areas. And for me, traveling to those areas lets me see that, yeah, okay, this woman is physically attractive enough that I would want to sleep with her. Okay. But beyond that, when you're sitting in a room with 20 or 30 beautiful people, um, you could say, well, this one is slightly more beautiful than that one, or this one is slightly not. But that's kind of silly. What's really fascinating is to say, okay, well, this one is unique because she has a really open heart and a good smile, or this person seems really confident, or this person seems really quirky, like they've kept like a little bit of their childhood glee and they're sharing it with us. Um, this person seems to be very different. Like, I really value people who are different, like a woman who has male behaviors or thought patterns, um, or a man who has female behaviors. Those things that make people unique, um, people that are being really true to themselves despite cultural conditioning, that takes a lot of courage. And that's something that we can use to redefine status. So, man, I am rambling a lot in this video. I've gone a lot of places, and I'm going to try to wrap it up. This one is a big ramble, and maybe that's just my kind of day I'm having. I don't know. I'm going to let everything go where it goes because I know that everything is perfect. And I know that being unstifled and letting myself be who I am and say what I need to say in the moment is always the most valuable thing. I love that people listen to these videos. I love that people watch my little show. But I'm ultimately doing it for myself. It helps to know that there's people out there on the other end of this. But ultimately, it's just great to know that I have a way to open my heart and my voice and just express myself openly. So I'm really grateful to all of you for that. As I said at the beginning of the show, feeling good is good work. The best work that you can do for yourself to get all the abundance you want, the best work that you can do for the world, to, with the right kindness, give people what they want, what they need, be valuable to the world. All that stuff really comes from a place of feeling great, of feeling beautiful, of feeling calm. The work that you do in a panic, the work that you do out of resignation, the work that you do out of resentment, the work that you do because you feel trapped, that isn't good work. It's not good for you or the world. Someone who uses products created by exploited workers. As I do, I know iPhone workers are treated not so well, and I still use my iPhone. That affects me in a certain way. I guess a more extreme example would be like the sex worker who doesn't have a choice to leave her job and is trapped having to service a lot of men. That's of course horrible for her, but it's also bad for the men. They're out of their desperation to feel feminine energy or to feel powerful or whatever they want. They're finding that need satisfied, but in a way that it poisons them. Being with a woman who's forced to be with you is not healthy for you. It's not just that it's terrible for her, it's that it's terrible for the guys too. And we need to come up with more situations where we work together and we all win, where we all benefit from the work that we do. I want you to benefit from the work that I do. I want myself to benefit from the work that I do. I want what I do to inspire people so that they will go out and do things that are good for everybody. Of course we have self-interest. Of course we want to benefit from the efforts that we put into the world. I want to put in effort and get some good feelings in return, whether that's the good feeling of having money or the good feeling of having friends or the good feeling of feeling important, whatever it is. It's good to feel valuable to the group, but we really need to continue to just cast aside the calcification and the feeling of being stuck or a feeling of having to do things a certain way, the feeling that we have to feel bad, when we work. Maybe we can numb ourselves to it if we're lucky, but, feeling that that's just our natural state. That's just peasant mentality. That's just the cultural conditioning that is put by people in the lower classes on themselves. And when I say lower classes, I mean everybody who's not the 1%. I mean the upper middle class and everybody down from there. It doesn't matter if you're a doctor or a dentist or a, CEO or some other high-paying, high-achieving person. if you still feel trapped, you still feel trapped. So do whatever you're doing out of love, and know that feeling good in every moment is the beginning of good work. It's the way of doing your best, as they say. Um, I know that I'm always doing my best, and I know that by doing what feels right in every moment, I am skipping along the plane of existence, and that I am finding all of the things that I desire and the lessons and the wisdom that I seek to enjoy this life more and more and more. So, this is a really long video and I rambled a lot, but I guess I had a lot to say. It's been a pleasure to speak with you all. Come visit me at joeneely.net/community and see all the different ways you can connect with me and each other. Have a great day. Bye-bye.